guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to your reading. I'm Jo, and this morning I asked the cards about, I don't know, this question just popped into my mind because I had listened to a podcast on the magic that you are, being you changing the world. And so I said, it just popped into my head to ask the cards, like, how does my collective find their magic? And it's a strange question because it's something that's very simple but not always easy to hear or comprehend. You are the magic. And this idea that magic is something outside of ourselves, that it's something that happens in a cauldron, or that the tarot cards are magical in just this being this piece of paper, this piece of card. But it isn't. You are the living, breathing current of magic, of this life force energy. It is constantly running through you, and it's just something that we have been taught and conditioned to disconnect from. So the cards that came through today really highlighted that, and I love that because we forget that we are the magic, and we often think that it's going to be this thing that we have to figure out in our heads. We have to learn more, but a lot of the problem comes in is that we're constantly living in our heads, and we forget that the biggest energy center is our heart, and this is where we tap into the magic through sensation, through our bodies, through the experience. And so let's get into the cards. The first card that we pulled up is the Hierophant. And the energy of the Hierophant speaks of like structure, tradition, religion, belief systems, belief systems, whether they be spiritual belief systems or religious belief systems, but this spiritual authority, this that is external from yourself. There's a lot of knowledge here. Everything we're taught about what is wrong, what is right, what is true, what is real. Maybe you were taught that magic is, black magic, it's dark, or it's something not to be messed with. Maybe you were taught that it's not real, and it's not necessarily that these external knowledge, this external knowledge and structures are negative. They often give us the language, the framework, the pathways. It helps us build meaning. It helps us also pass on the knowledge and experience that we've had. But it misses that experiential practice and that experiential knowledge, that knowledge you get only from experience. And to experience that, we have to move out of the head, out of these ideas and language around this whole concept of magic. And so what started out as a guide to get you to this place of tapping into your magic and this inner knowing kind of starts to replace that very inner knowing. So all of a sudden all this information is what's so important, and the actual practices and the things that actually tap us into that energy, that magic, get lost. And so the first message in this reading might be this, is that you may have been taught what magic is supposed to look like before you were ever encouraged to feel your own magic, feel what your own magic actually feels like. And so you can pause and ask, where did I inherit my beliefs around spirituality, intuition, magic, truth? Where Where were you told a truth that you've never quite resonated with? And maybe sit and ask, like, what does still feel alive, like what still feels alive in my body or just familiar in my mind. And then we received the Six of Cups, which was also the card of the day for today's daily tarot card. And this energy softens things a bit, and also just brings back that childlike message again. It's like the memory of innocence, emotional truths before the conditioning happened. Like experiencing the world before the language, before, like pre-language. So definitely experiencing the world from an energetic space, from the body, and just being less in the head. This is the part of you that existed before you learned to perform, before you had to explain yourself, before you were taught to make yourself smaller or more accessible. This is like that card of like wonder and childlike curiosity. And this card is pointing directly at your original magic. The kind that you had before you had language for it, before you had this idea of witches and potions, and before you were before you were told these ideas of magic, before you were told that you had to be practical so that, magic wasn't real, before you were told to be realistic, before you had to be good at anything, when you were just allowed to play and experience the world through what made you, what energetically attracted you. So your magic in its purest form lives in those early impressions of joy. What made you lose track of time? What made you feel deeply alive without needing validation? What could you do for hours alone without anyone watching? What did you create? What did you imagine? And what did you feel when no one was watching? This is not nostalgia for the past. This is rather like a retrieval, a deep remembering of what this magic feels like. Because what you're looking for is not something new. It's something that you were trained to disconnect from, to forget. And the world we live in is very externally focused. And we've created this amazing world that we live in, and so that's not a bad thing. But we have disconnected from our internal magic and energy. And then the Ten of Pentacles. And this is where the story becomes generational. So the Ten of Pentacles speaks about inheritance, and not just money or material legacy, but also emotional inheritance. Beliefs specifically around survival, identity, identity structures that have been passed down through many, many family lines and generations. And some of what you carry is supportive, and it can be grounding and very wise, but some of it is unconscious. Everything is unconscious until we make it conscious. So it's this unconscious programming that might have been the truth of someone that you learned it from, but is it your truth? These are our ideas around safety, around success, around love, and like possibilities. And this card is asking for your discernment, because our ideas around success today compared to 50 years ago or even 100 years ago are so different, because the world we live in is different. And your truth is your truth, and something that you've learned or inherited might have been true for them, but is not true for you today. Often our magic is like, it's not something we've lost. It's something that sometimes is buried under like inherited expectations. So like the real work of this card is that, like, really honestly looking at everything that you inherited and realizing that not all of it is yours to keep. Not everything you were taught is true for you. And also, even if it was true at some point, allowance for it to change and not be true today. So like there's a sorting, like there's a bit of like a sorting, like the sorting hat from Harry Potter, sorting happening here. It's like, what is mine? And you can ask, when you're feeling something like, is this mine? Is this my truth? What is learned? What is survival? And what is my truth? And as you begin to answer these questions honestly, you start to feel your own energy return. When something is true for you, you will feel a lightness. And that lightness, that flow is your magic. So truth. Truth is a big one. And then, I love this, at the bottom of the deck, we had the High Priestess in the reversal. And this is like the kind of underlying energy of the entire spread. I kind of like to see my bottoms like that, and kind of the quiet core of the reading. And the High Priestess is intuition, it's inner knowing, it's that voice that doesn't need proof. It is that immediate yes or that immediate no without you even having to question. And reversed, she often shows this disconnect from that voice. And not because it's gone, but just because we are overriding it. Maybe there's just too much noise around us, too many opinions of others that we're focusing on, or too many inherited beliefs. Basically too much focus on the external, or on what is correct, or instead of what is true, and true for us, true for you. And each of our truths is unique to us. And that is where the whole like message comes kind of into focus. Like, your magic is not missing, but where is it being blocked? Or where are you like blocking it by like kind of not being true to yourself? So your access, it's almost like it's been clouded, not broken. It's never broken. It's never lost. It's always within you. But it can get clouded over by that like signal with it, that connection with it can get clouded over by kind of like authority outside of you, inherited belief systems, emotional memory that was passed down to you that isn't yours. And the path back is not like about trying harder, but it's about quieting everything that isn't you. So when we bring all of this together in the message, it's a very clear message. So the Hierophant shows us the conditioning from our societal conditioning, the systemic belief systems, the societies we were brought up in, countries we were born into, the religious kind of norms. And the Six of Cups shows us the original self. And the Ten of Pentacles shows us inherited patterns. And the High Priestess in the reversal shows that disconnection from like the inner authority, inner self. So with my question being how to find our magic, it is very, very, very clear is that there is this disconnect from your inner self, from your true self. And the invitation is to stop looking for your magic as something you need to acquire, but start noticing what you already know before you were told. And the Six of Cups coming out twice today also reminds me that, tap back into that child. For me, it was gardening. I mean, being around plants and in the garden was one of my earliest memories of having that wonder and play. And so I know for me that if I can just go to a walk in nature or go to a nursery, a garden center, it just immediately pops me back into that, immediately just reconnects me with my magic. Because magic is not something you become, it is something you return to. So today, just to leave you with a very simple reflection, but what feels like truth in your body before you explain it away? And if nothing comes up immediately when you ask yourself these questions, like what is my truth? What feels good in my body? Is this a yes or a no? That's okay. The High Priestess doesn't speak in noise and she doesn't speak in language. She speaks in sensation. And that requires stillness and space. And that is a practice. And so your magic is waiting in that stillness for you to remember it again. So maybe find a quiet moment in the day that you can just dedicate to being with yourself. And eventually this language of the body, the language of the intuition will start to feel louder and louder. And the more we can get out of our heads and into our bodies, the easier and easier it becomes. I hope this resonated. May you have a magical day. Thank you for being here and see you in the next read.